Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Talk Tuesday, December 10th. It's actually hard to believe we are in December already. The year has certainly flown by very quickly. And this is our last Talk Tuesday of 2024. We'll restart, of course, in January when we get back. But we have an exciting day today with a great presentation, great content. So we want to get going, give our presenters all the time that they need. And I wanted to welcome you here. I am Christine Killen, consultant at the State Education Resource Center. I am here with my colleagues, Anne-Marie Cardisco and Holly Ryan. We're also here with our partners and colleagues from CSDE, Kari Sullivan Custer, and Jay Brown. Today, our special presentation is on the impact of belonging. And we really want to welcome Dr. Maribel Olivero, Amanda Pickett from CSDE, Dr. Tyresha Batchelor, Director of Equity and Access from Simsbury Public Schools, Tayson Haynes, Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator, Avon Public Schools, and Natalie Simpson, Equity Inclusion Coordinator from Farmington Public Schools. I will wrap up in the end with just some housekeeping on attendance and engagement upcoming meetings, but we will move on. So our Superintendent's Digest, just a few things I really put together on this slide. There wasn't a whole lot in Superintendent's Digest from our last meeting, but anything that you might be interested in here, remember the QR code is always in the PowerPoint, also with the link. So if you want to explore even previous Superintendent's Digest announcements or check on some of these links, you could also find that there. There is a request for proposals for interdistrict grant programs for 25-26 that was announced. So I thought that was something that might be interesting for some districts to look into. There was a playlist for educators on illuminating Indigenous people, cultures, and perspectives, which might be an interesting resource as well. Also, there was some information on AI, which I found very interesting. I know schools are really delving into this and digging a little bit deeper. That's a hot topic for us, for schools, for everybody. So there was a few press releases on that, an education tool pilot application that was out, and even things from the Office of Civil Rights, explaining the civil rights implication of schools using artificial intelligence. So just thought there was some interesting information on AI. There's also a press release on regional school choice application that is open now through February 7th. So if some of those things interest you, the links are here. Please delve in and enjoy. I'm now going to turn it over to Kari Sullivan Custer to give us some updates. Go ahead, Kari.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Talk Tuesday for December. I'm really happy to be here. We haven't been together in quite a while, so we have an exciting agenda ahead. I have a couple things I want to go over before we get started with our guest speakers. So if we go to the next slide, please. As always, I'm going to start with data, and this is from the EdSite Attendance Dashboard, which is an important resource for monitoring attendance data. It has monthly chronic absence rates now, starting with October of this year. And we can see here that our overall chronic absence rate was 16.1 for all students. And you can see that it bumps up for students with high needs, English learners, multilingual learners, eligible for free and reduced lunch are students with disabilities, but students of color, and then if you just look at our homeless, is still very upsetting to see it so high. However, it was in the high 40s last year. So all of these numbers have come down quite a bit since last year. And I'm going to show you that. In the next slide, we'll show you, this is a snapshot from the EdSite attendance dashboard, and it shows all students for 2022 and 2023, and it's a monthly graph that will show October is first. So you see in October 2022 we are at 22.5%. At October 17.9, that was in 2023, and this last October we were at 16.1. So we're pleased to see a consistent reduction in chronic absence in October. However, if you will notice, we have some tough months ahead, with November and December tend to be high chronic absence months for us. Next slide, please. This slide shows high needs versus non-high needs. And there's a large disparity between our students with high needs chronic absence rates and our students with not high needs. So you can see we were at 28.5 for high needs in 2022. 24 came down 4.5 points, and then came down another 2.5 points this year. There is a little bit of a gap closing between the two, but this is a demographic of students that we're really concerned. This is our students with high needs, our multilingual students, and our students with disabilities, and our spring readers lunch. So these are our high needs students who we know everyone is really watching their data and helping to support those families who have barriers to learning and coming to school. Next slide, please. This is multilingual versus not multilingual. The gap isn't as large, and you'll see that the are from October 2 years ago is at 28 point. Now read that right, 26.8 to 23 here to 20. And so that data is coming down as well. And the next slide is students with disabilities. So you see 30.2 to 25.4 to 23.3. So little bits of progress in each of the groups. For our October, our starting rate, we know if you look at these trends, we're going to see upticks in the next couple months. And so that's concerning. And I wanted to have a discussion with folks about what we're doing to ensure students are coming to school on these days that are high or low attendance days. Some districts call them the dip days. And can you go to the next slide, please? We know that there are patterns of low attendance after long breaks or around holidays. So I'm going to ask for folks to get their fingers ready or get ready to talk, because we want to hear from you and we want you to share with each other how has your district addressed this in the past. And specifically, what I'm concerned about and what I've heard districts concerned about is the schedule for the end of December, beginning of January this year. New Year's Day is on a Wednesday, so kids come back on Thursday, Friday. Monday is Three Kings Day, and then Tuesday we come back again. So folks are concerned and have expressed this to me about January 2nd and 3rd. Like, why come back for 2 days? So what creative strategies are your district and school attendance teams planning to make January 2nd and 3rd, let's talk about exciting for students and engaging students? Because we know there's several things that go into whether or not they come to school. One, the student wanting to be there, and two, the parents making sure the students are there. So right now we're talking about how can we make it exciting and engaging for the students to be there? What are you planning? Many times I hear, oh, it's just nothing happens on those days. It's not an important day. Other times it won't matter if we miss 2 days.
Sorry, I'm going to chime in a little bit. And I'm just thinking of how hard it was to create a school calendar for this year because of where holidays lied. And I think somebody wrote in the comments that some districts, this is an incredibly long break because they are also including like Three Kings Days and other holidays that are representative of their student population. So thinking about it's sometimes in some districts an extended winter break. And so messaging there and kind of all of that stuff, thinking about how we're communicating that. So interesting considerations. This was a hard calendar, like school calendar year to like create.
Yes, I have sat down and looked at it with a couple of districts, and do we take the 2nd and 3rd off and just come back after Three Kings Day? And where does that put us at the end of the year? It's a difficult decision. So Sandra, I see your hand. Welcome. Sandra Romero from Waterbury. Welcome.
Thank you, Carrie. I've been starting to see the school calendar. I came from New York. But one of the things that we started speaking was about for elementary schools, one of the things that we are thinking about is having mystery days. So part of my experience has been reviewing in New York City the school calendar is that when kids get the day off, they don't look forward to coming back because there's nothing fun to come back to. So one of the things we ended up doing was calling a mystery day. What happens on mystery days? We come up with some incentives. They don't know what it is going to be because it's mystery day. So all kids that show up can partake in this mystery day. So I've been discussing with some of the schools here something to implement like that, because it's a fun, creative way to encourage the kids, so the kids can encourage their parents. We know elementary is like the kids, if the kids remind parents, I gotta get to school, I have to get to school, then the parents are gonna be like, well, we're gonna have to take you to school, right? Because they're so looking forward to this mystery day. We started off like back in New York, simple things, having a special lunch, just working with the school cafeteria and what can be offered on that day. And then we have even turned it into shifting depending on the budget, like gloves. I know that's a really, really one that is very popular. Like kids look forward to getting gloves, especially in the winter.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add to that? Yeah, mystery day sounds fantastic. I know one school does attend dance days, and they don't tell them attend dance with dance and caps, right? They don't tell them what day of the week it's going to be. It's usually later in the week, and they just spontaneous have a dance party in lunch or whatever, or something that the kids really enjoy, and making them excited to come because they they want to know what it is and they want to be part of it and they don't want to miss it. So that's one big part of it. So I appreciate those who have put their ideas on how to make it engaging for students. I hope that all of your district attendance teams and school attendances have been talking about getting kids back on time from school break. Every day matters and school is better with you is really important messaging at this point in time. Bobby Tar says for us, it's more about how do we get parents to not take extended vacations? The kids are not full with the parents. I've already notified us they won't be back. That's right. Parents will schedule vacations. We want to be, I'm going to share some resources about that. Sometimes it's not avoidable. Sometimes it is. But the reality is they will. And so we want to support them so that when they come back, they're ready to learn. But I'm sure that that's not all of the kids who are missing school. So for the next slide, I'm going to ask, how can we effectively communicate with families to emphasize the importance of these school days? So we're talking about what we can do to get kids to want to come. What can we do to make sure that families know that these days are important too? It may not seem like it, but your kids are, school is important every day, and that we really want you to bring your kids to school. How are you communicating this message with family in a friendly, relational way that's positive? I know some school districts I've spoken to, and those families who took vacation last year during holiday, they spoke with them over the summer so that they could say, you took that vacation last year. It'd be really helpful if you planned it differently this year, and try and understand why they're doing it and how you can be supportive. That family might need to take that vacation. And sometimes a vacation may be a bias because it may not be a vacation, it may be a family obligation because our grandparents no longer live the next state over, or maybe Florida. Some grandparents, or a lot of grandparents, live in another country, on another continent. And so the travel is more extensive and more expensive. Has anyone had, I love this, we do a newsletter every week that goes out to families. So Corey says exactly this happens around Thanksgiving as well. It's consistent messaging about the vacations and about the importance of coming back. It's not just one and done. It's every year. And you notice the families who have these trends who keep doing it every year and maybe have those discussions with them.
Sorry, I'm going to chime in because I think you raise a good point, and I think folks are talking about those tier 1 letters and that messaging, and it's reminding me of, gosh, maybe a couple years ago when you had done a session on like communication messages to families and like how to kind of craft those. And I think the importance of like not just the compliance of making sure you're sending the attendance letter of how many days the kid has been out and what your policy is, but I think what you're talking about is knowing the situations and how are you tailoring the message. And I think that really matters because when families receive like the same letter that's sent to everybody that they've gotten 45 times already, you've really lost your audience. But when they receive a letter that's like, hey, we've noticed this pattern, or you know what, your kids had a lot of sick days and they have the school nurse call and say, what's going on? Is there something that we can help you with health? So I think that important piece of noticing how you're communicating with families and looking at kind of the legislative compliance of sending the letter versus like actually communicating with families about the importance of attendance.
Happening, the root causes, what's happening with that family. It's about relationships. And just sending a letter does not always help strengthen a relationship, especially if it's not friendly. Caroline, this is really interesting, the ripple effect of absences. Do you want to talk a minute about that?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So Attendance Works in California, they had done some research around this and created a video about the ripple effect of chronic absenteeism. So when we think about, we always think about the child who's absent and how it impacts that particular individual student, but really it is much broader than that. And when you think about group work and kids relying on one another to complete pieces of an assignment, and then you think about a teacher being pulled in multiple directions, having to catch kids up who've been out, and what are the other students doing at that point in time while the teacher is helping the student who was absent, it really does create this ripple effect that trickles into the whole school community and can eventually even impact funding for schools, because then you have more students needing potentially intervention services and remedial support for academics because they've missed so much school. So it really is a broader problem than just the individual child, and getting families to understand that their decision-making around attendance for those potential dip days can impact, so many more, and that the scope is broader, might be a helpful message for them to receive, to understand the ramifications of their decisions. Not in a
Thank
blue,
you.
of course, just in like let's educate everybody and get the community on board kind of a way.
Attendance Works, I was on a webinar with them yesterday, and there's a new report that comes out that talks about staff morale, teacher morale, when there's high chronic absence rate, low attendance, and how frustrating it is for teachers and how much more they do not like their job if they have students who are, high number of students who aren't coming to school. It does make it much more difficult to stay on track and to keep everybody in the same, we're on the same where they need to be. So I just saw an interesting one. The National Cheerleading Association. They schedule their events while schools are in session out for Disney. And if that is a school sponsored event, then it's excused absences, but they're still out. And that happens for lots of teams, not just the cheerleading. With the small class sizes, when 3 or 4 students are on those tip days, impacts the teacher's ability to continue with the curriculum. Absolutely. All right. And then the last question is, next slide. What challenges might families face in returning to the holidays? So from your family perspective, thinking with some empathy in mind, what are the challenges for families coming back after the holidays, and how can we help them overcome them? Illness. Thanks, Amanda.
They're tired from their vacation.
They're tired from their vacation, right? I see the thread about loss of credit at the high school level. That is an extensive discussion about that, which I can share with folks. If you put your name in the chat, I can share sort of FAQ I have about loss of credit. That is a local policy. The State Department of Education does not have policy on absences and loss of credit. It is a local decision. Our policy is on daily attendance. But I can share some resources on that with you.
Sorry,
Possibly, yes.
I just wanted to add, I'm glad you brought up use the word empathy, because I think that it's important. It's easy sometimes for, from the outside looking in to sometimes be judgmental, or feel like parents don't care, etc. I think, so I'm glad you used the word empathy. We don't know what is going on in people's families. They don't, most of the time, they don't necessarily share things, especially things that are ongoing and personal. When I see your question, what challenges might families face in returning after the holidays? I think a lot of times it's just not being off their routine. When you're in school, and I think it's the same for teachers and any other educators that may be off for a little bit. It's kind of just getting back into that routine and that schedule of kind of getting back in the swing of things. And I think often that's the biggest challenge. When they're on vacation, they're up late, they're doing fun stuff, they're hanging out with other families that, they may not even be sleeping, if they've gone away, or, whether it's local or not. So they have all this stuff that's been happening. And so, yeah, I agree. Somebody said tired. I'm definitely going to be tired, but within feeling tired, I think it's really just getting back into the swing of things and getting into that routine of I have to get up and I have to do this and I need to be at the bus stop or I have to be at school. So I think, helping, any strategies that we can share with parents and how to get their kids back on track, I think would be helpful.
Excellent. Remember, the holidays aren't the same for everyone, so consider your bias, your position in life, and what your experience as a vendor is not the same for everyone. There are families or individuals where the holidays are very hard. Maybe it's not a holiday. Maybe they just lost a loved one and they can't get out of bed. Go ahead, Sandra.
I was about to type it. So when we find out that they're traveling, to build on that relationship, what we tend to do is greet them and, check in with them before they leave about ensuring that they know when they're returning back, right? And discussing what Dr. Oliver just shared, right? Are you ready to come back? School starts at 8, and just kind of talking to administration, like this family might arrive a little bit late. So we tend to have like a family meeting to build on the relationships, and also not to feel them like they're doing something wrong, but rather than, we understand you're traveling, but we also want to be ready for you when you come back from traveling, right? Do you need a reminder call the day before? Where can we call you? And just kind of making that relationship even tighter. So like that, if they decide to travel again, they know we're going to have this meeting again. So kind of doing some reflection on it. Do I really want to travel next year? The support in the school has been very, very helpful. It's not like they're saying, you missed 10 days already because you traveled, but rather like, oh, they met with me. They met with me and my child to talk about it. And when it's with high school students, we meet with the high school students. We tend to inform the parent, but we meet with the high school student as well, because we also want to treat them like adults, right? So you're going to be traveling, great for you. Where are you traveling? We look forward to hearing all your stories, but are you ready to come back to school? And just kind of making those checklists for them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Helping out with the bills in the house, so they need to attend to work instead of attending school. The holidays are really expensive time. There's a lot of extra costs related to food and presents and clothing and, the electric bill, the oil bill, or fuel bill. It's all going up. It's very stressful. And so I do mean empathy when you're working with families, when you're writing with families. Angelo, I appreciate your acknowledgement of different religions. We have lots of different religions. Many districts have Three Kings Day off, but not all districts. But the way the holiday fell this year, it's very difficult. So I just wanted to put that in this space, acknowledge it, and let you guys kind of, think about it together. And if you think of any other good ideas for other districts that have worked in your district, or if you have any questions about it, let us know, because we might be able to pull together some of these ideas and do sort of FAQ on it. So if you go to the next slide, I didn't want to leave you without resources. So I wanted to remind you of the School is Better With You campaign. Many of you have the banners in your schools, but there's a spread the word toolkit. You can download these resources and put your school logo on it. There's a parent flyer in English and Spanish, a flyer to educate staff around what a chronic absence mean. There's a wonderful tip sheet, I think like 40 tips for what to say in morning announcement, tips for talking to parents, when is sick, too sick. We put up there, Attendance Works has Is Your Child Missing School Due to Anxiety. It's an excellent resource. So you have the website here and the QR code, but there's also an FAQ page where you can get some responses to some questions, like my family had travel plans. How do you respond to that? When should I keep my child home from school? So I wanted to share those resources. And the next resource is, if you go to the next slide, is from Attendance Works. holiday messaging from Attendance Works, send out a letter before Thanksgiving. Well, we missed that, but we can still do that. When many people have Parent Square, we can use Parent Square. I know that's really helpful in communicating with families, and make sure you know when school is resuming. So I wanted to give you these resources as well, and wish you all well for the holiday season, and for your winter break. I hope everybody has a wonderful time relaxing, have some hot cocoa, read a good book, and we'll see you after the new year. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Chris.
Thank you so much, Kari. Appreciate that. And I'll now turn it over to our presenters. Um,
All right, I am going to start sharing my screen. First, I really want to thank my colleagues. Kari, you have always been so willing to share the space with School Climate Work, and I really appreciate you giving space here. I also want to thank Maribel. I have been collaborating with you, and you have been freshening and deepening my perspective of the work. And so I'm just thankful for this opportunity to cross-pollinate efforts. For me, today's an opportunity to demonstrate the intentionality of work and the importance of investing in social capital. The three individuals that you will hear from districts are really working in partnership for continuous improvement for the success of students. I'm just going to share with folks, this isn't about a magic wand strategy of a campaign, but really in the power of intentionality, alignment, cultivating allies and partners, and engaging those impacted and with influence in the decision-making process. I know that there's going to be so many takeaways from the wisdom being shared. So I do want to pass it off to Maribel, who will formally introduce our guests and share a little bit more about the DEI efforts at the agency.
Oh, I realized I was on mute. So thank you, Amanda, for that. I just wanted to share with everyone, we do have in EdSite's contacts. And the reason I bring that up is because, some of the folks that are going to be on this meeting today, which I'll introduce just momentarily, I had the pleasure of meeting through different groups within the state. And so when I first started, we did not have like a EdSite's contact for anyone who was doing diversity, equity, or inclusion work, but that has been created. And so we do have some contacts, and I'll share the link in a minute. And so it's been a pleasure getting to know Dr. Tyarisha Batchelor, who is the Director of Equity and Access for Simsbury Public Schools. We also have Tassan Haynes, who's just as lovely, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coordinator for Avon Public Schools. Of course, myself, Amanda, and Natalie Simpson, who is the Equity and Inclusion Coordinator for Farmington Public Schools. And so what we want to kind of talk a little bit about is, Amanda mentioned earlier, it's not a magic wand strategy. So we wanted to kind of have an opportunity for you to hear from these three districts who are working to really foster a positive climate of belonging and improving attendance. But they're not doing it in isolation. A lot of times you see that in districts, you may have an equity director or someone who is tasked with doing the work, but they have a tendency of working by themselves, with whether it's within the district. And the beautiful thing about these three individuals is that they are working together and, in their efforts. And that is power. We need to be able to understand that there are, lots of critical elements when it comes to this work, and that it's not a one size fits all. So, coordinating ideas and connecting with others is something that they've been able to do. And so we are going to share some of that and how to engage students, staff, families, and the community in the work. And so they're going to share some data and how to address some potential barriers. And most importantly, they're going to, just be pretty upfront. Nothing is ever perfect, especially not in schools. We're always learning and we're modifying. And I also did want to share that last year, during the school year, we had an equity symposium Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Symposium at the State Department. And as a result of that, I had invited some folks to start some DEI roundtable discussions. And so we have continued those. Those started last year in January. We meet monthly. We do have a regular set schedule, and we do meet in person this year. So if anybody's interested in that, I'm happy to kind of share the schedule. And I'm going to add the link to the chat so that if you are wondering like when my district is responsible for this work, you can find the contact on our EdSite. Secure, not secure, sorry. There is a secure version, but our EdSite public version. And I just added the link. And I will turn it over to Amanda now.
Maribel. I think a really important piece that I can't wait to hand it over to the districts that they're going to share and that Maribel just highlighted is that the work that we're doing is not just attendance, it's not just this, it's not just that, but we're really looking at how do we co-create environments that are affirming, equitable, and inclusive, and that truly foster this sense of belonging. And so we think about how do we co-create culture, we really need to understand people's personal experience to do that work. So climate is only positive if it is felt that way by the individual. So the importance of co-creating norms, values, traditions, rituals is critical to fostering belonging. And we need to be willing to understand multiple perspectives and really honor personal experiences to co-create spaces. We all know that a huge barrier to kids and staff attending regularly is a sense of a positive school climate and safety at school. So I will be turning it over momentarily to our district to talk about their efforts. And in transparent space with you all, some of the conversation that led to our place of how do we get out positive messaging and co-creating a positive space with students came from some of the realities of the struggles that we're having, the realities of unsafe and unkind language, challenging behaviors. And so how do we get ahead of that by really focusing on how do we co-create spaces where people want to be, people feel safe, people feel included, people feel affirmed. So I know if you've been in space with me before, you've seen this slide and you've seen this slide. These are just quick reminders of how comprehensive school climate and wellness work is. This is a reminder around alignment and working collaboratively. Schools are doing a lot of things to impact climate. We talk about climate in these three large buckets. For today's conversation, I want us to be thinking about our role in aligning our buckets, streamlining the buckets, and working intentionally and collaboratively for the impact that we're looking to achieve. So I've been talking about the districts long enough. I'm going to pass it over to them. And we are going to start with Simsbury. So I'm going to pass it over. And I think we're going to start with a video, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves before I hit play.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tyresha Batchelor. This is my 4th year in Simsbury Public Schools. Prior to that, I was a principal in Hartford. So I commend you for the work that you're doing on attendance. And I know that there's the technical pieces that has to be done, and then there's also the adaptive pieces. So what I wanted to share is that my vision for Simsbury Public School is that attendance is something that we're always talking about and that everyone is involved. So this campaign came out of looking at the root causes to the reason why students are not coming to school. So we're going to talk later about different types of data that we used, but I started with what is the root cause? Why are some students not coming to school? And then I started to work with my partners in Farmington Valley because I know that practice makes perfect, and I didn't want to do this work alone. It's hard work and it's continuous work. So my vision was to make sure that there were all hands on deck and that it really connected to what we said about Simsbury. We say that we offer a sense of belonging and safe spaces, and we have great access to programs. So let's see what it looks like. So that was my vision, and that's how we got started.
You ready for me to play the video?
Welcome to the Simsbury Public Schools, where we believe in the power of our words to shape our community. Our Encouraging Words campaign is dedicated to promoting equity and inclusion, ensuring that every student, teacher, and staff member feels respected and valued. As superintendent of the Simsbury Public Schools, please join us in this campaign.
Hello, I'm Maggie Seidel, principal of Simsbury High School. In our schools, words have the power to build up or break down. Use your words to inspire and to support one another. We are excited to kick off the Encouraging Words campaign at the start of the 24-25 school year. Let's work together to create an environment where everyone feels safe and encouraged.
We invite you to become a part of our team here at Simsbury High School because
Words matter.
Hi, my name is Mike Luzetti, and I'm the principal of Latimer Lane Elementary School. Our Encouraging Words campaign reminds us that every word we speak can impact someone's day, someone's week, and even someone's life. It's our responsibility to choose words that uplift and inspire. At Latimer Lane, we strive to treat students, peers, and everyone in our community with respect, responsibility, and kindness. That includes our words, our actions, and the way that we treat each other each and every day.
We're going to be sixth graders at Latimer Lane this year, and we think it's very important to show and model respect, responsibility, and kindness.
I'm Beth Hennessy, principal of Central School. Central is the oldest school in Simsbury, being built in 1913, and we are so proud of how our students sail for the school. We are a community, and every member of our community is important. We teach our students that kindness and respect are essential to creating a supportive and inclusive environment.
I'm Meg Evans, principal at Squadron Line School. And we all shine at Squadron Line because all are welcome. We value the unique stories of all the individuals here, and we know that you can't do great things unless we all work together. Squadron Line School is a great place to work, learn, and grow because we understand the importance of taking care of one another, learning from our mistakes, and remembering to always act with respect, responsibility, and kindness.
Hi, my name is Tashara Leese, and I'm going to Henry James. I'm mostly looking forward to making new friends and socializing with other people.
I'm her mom, Corporina Sanchez. New is a big keyword. We are in a new neighborhood, new district, new teachers. We look forward to the new school year to get familiar, to get engaged in more events and learn more about the community.
I'm Scott Baker, the principal at Henry James Memorial School. I'm so excited about our Encouraging Words campaign. As we all know the old adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words shall never hurt me. That couldn't be further from the truth. Words do matter, and whether we are face-to-face or on our phones, this year we're going to focus on using words to help rather than harm. At HJMS, we will live out our motto of respect, responsibility, and integrity.
Hello, my name is Steve Matazik, and I'm principal of Terriffill School. We are a community that every member of our community is important. We teach our students that kindness and respect are essential to creating a supportive and inclusive environment. I'm so excited to start our Encouraging Words campaign here at Terriffill School. This will enhance our students' respect, responsibility, and kindness and citizenship towards one another.
Hello, I'm Anjanette Belmonte, principal of Tooten Hills School. When we speak with empathy and understanding, we show that we care about one another. This campaign is about being more conscientious of our words and their impacts.
I'm Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, Sue Hamrock Lemke.
And I'm Neil Sullivan, Assistant Superintendent for Administration.
Let's make sure our words reflect the respect and kindness that every person deserves.
Together, we can create an environment where everyone feels valued and included.
I'm Dr. Tyrisha Batchelor, the Director of Equity and Access for Simsbury Public Schools. Please join us in our Encouraging Words campaign. We believe that we can create a sense of belonging for everyone by being more conscious of our words and using them to lift each other up. Simsbury Public Schools, where every word counts and every person matters.
So as you can see, I really wanted to start with what the root cause was. And our students have a lot of power, they have a lot of voice. And I started by asking them, what do you like to do when you come to school? How do you feel when you come to school? And we do have different sets of students. We have some students who live in Hartford, some students who live in Simsbury. And what we were finding was students didn't have that connection and that sense of belonging. I was very intentional in starting the campaign in phases so that I can receive feedback as we went along. And the first step was having the superintendent, because we know that as the head, a lot of people will follow if they know it's something that he believe in. So I first started by showing the data to the superintendent, and once he was on board, it was easier to bring other people. And then you see we have each principal. And what I did also was made sure that I was able to align the work with what the principals had in their one pagers. So it's not something different. You hear them each talking about their own character ed programs in their buildings. And then in phase two, there's another video, which I won't show you now. But in phase two, now we have the library, the Simsbury Public Library made a video. We have the town manager who made a video. We have some businesses who made a video. And it's all about making sure that we all own it together.
All right, so I guess it's my time to jump in. So I will introduce myself. I'm Tassan Haynes, Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator for Avon Public Schools. So first, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Dr. Batchelor, because if it wasn't for her, Avon wouldn't be engaging in this work in the way that we're doing it. So we sort of started our process with this, and we haven't rolled out the program just yet. We intend to do that next year. The good thing about our multi-district collaboration, though, is that I'm learning a lot from both Simsbury and Farmington, because they have already rolled out the program for this year. So Avon, we have the Words Matter campaign, whereas Simsbury is encouraging words, and Farmington is actions matter. Avon, we're just using Words Matter. And for me, this started as a way for us to be proactive and deal with culture and climate, right? We know if students do not feel connected to school, they are less likely to attend school. They're less likely to be engaged in school. So that makes the work that we all do in terms of trying to get students to come to school that much more difficult. So trying to find a proactive way to really change the paradigm of students, feeling isolated, or that there's not a community behind anything positive in school. So we've decided, you know what, let's look at how we treat one another. Because we have students in our district from Hartford as well. And when we just look at climate and culture data, there are populations of students that just do not feel connected to school. And if you think about the perspective of a student who spends most of their day in school, that has to be an exceptionally difficult thing if you're not engaged, if you don't feel like you belong there. So we really wanted to kind of shift that. So with the Words Matter campaign, we're really taking this full front. We really want to make sure that we engage community members. We want to engage all staff. We want to make sure that we have students actively involved in this process. So one aspect that differentiates Avon a little bit from our other districts is that I designed Words Matter ambassadors. And these students are going to be chosen K through 12 in their respective schools to be ambassadors to help spearhead and share the words and to share the encouragement. So there's affirmations that we sort of created that the students can read on a daily basis, and getting them involved in spreading positive messages. And these are not just like the cheesy messages that, say great things to people. No, it's really things that really make people to think, thinking about how people engage on social media, lots of different affirmations that are just positive messages and coming from peers. Because adults can say these things all day long, but unless we get students actively involved in this, our efforts are going to go for naught. So we really wanted to make sure that, in Avon, that we're engaging these students and we wanted to give them a nice title. And then we always want to dangle a carrot for, our high school students so they can also acquire community service hours for their work in the campaign. So we really wanted to kind of make this as comprehensive as possible, engaging parents. So there's a video component where our students can create public service announcements. And the idea behind that is to get families involved, right? If everybody's sort of rowing in the same direction and we're all talking about how words really do fundamentally impact people, positive and or negative, creating that atmosphere of positivity can only, mitigate our students feeling isolated or feeling that they just don't belong in their environment. And that's just the worst thing, for students. So one other thing that I'll say about Avon quickly. We firmly do believe in Avon that every student matters. Every single student matters. And through this campaign, it doesn't differentiate for any individual student. It's for everybody, right? And that's the inclusivity that we really want to kind of put at the forefront of what we're doing. So I'll stop talking now because I'd like to let Natalie jump in and talk about Farmington.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for welcoming me today. Natalie Simpson, I'm the Equity and Inclusion Coordinator for Farmington Public Schools. I also want to say that I think this conversation really started and give a thank you to Ms. Pickett and Dr. Oliveira because this conversation came together during one of our talk sessions as DEI coordinators and directors. And so I think it's just so important that we have the space and the support of the state to look at these topics and these scenarios. And so we were blessed to have the opportunity to hear from Dr. Batchelor, and then that's really how this social capital and partnership took shape. So I'm excited to talk to you about how Farmington has joined the team in this conversation and this work. We saw the video and we were really excited about it, and we knew that it was in alignment with the work that we're doing in Farmington. So we were thinking about, one, how could we market the work? How could we protect the work, especially during a contentious political time period where there's just a lot of differing views around certain words and certain initiatives, especially with DEI work. So we were looking, I partnered with my assistant superintendent and my superintendent to look at what we already have, and we aligned it to our core beliefs. And we thought that actions matters would connect perfectly because we're looking really deeply at belonging as well. And so inclusion is really having a seat at the table, but the belonging piece is what are the day-to-day actions and words that create space for students to feel connected and feel valued. So we aligned this work under Actions Matters. And then we also aligned it for our school improvement work under our goal 1, which is culture and climate. And so our district really focuses on high trust, high expectations, and high engagement. And so for high trust, we have the focus on respect and belonging, which also partners well with our work on conflict resolution and restorative practice. And then we tied that into attendance because we recognize that if students don't feel that belonging and connection, that they're not going to want to come to school. And then we also focus on student voice and leadership and getting feedback on how we could bring Actions Matters to life in every school. I think also shared responsibility and shared partnership is our focus for Actions Matter. So every school has aligned it to their school improvement goals, and every principal is partnering and doing the work. So I think the other piece is we're looking at the vision of our students and who we want them to become. So we have our vision of the global citizen, and we aligned Actions Matters to being civic-minded, being engaged, being empowered, being self-aware, and being disciplined. And then this work aligns to our equity framework in terms of school culture and climate, but then looking at Actions Matters in all of the other buckets, community engagement, as well as curriculum and academic achievement. So for academic achievement, it aligns to thinking about productive struggle with our students, thinking about how they can overcome obstacles, be upstanders, and what are the actions that support student empowerment. And then I'll talk a little bit later about some of the engagement pieces, but I think really we were just focusing on alignment and coherence, so that this would not look like it was done in isolation, but be a part of our current practice.
So we, just kind of looking at time, you know, we wanted to kind of just have a little discussion about, you know, where this idea came from. I believe they kind of shared some of that already. And the types of data that were used in making decisions, which, you know, is data. Sometimes, you know, we stay focused on, you know, specific types of data for any decisions that we make. And it's really important to make sure that we're looking at it from multiple perspectives. I think I'd like us to kind of move along into the engagement piece with Simsbury. So I will pass it over to Dr. Batchelor.
Sure. I'll just share briefly that this campaign had 3 phases. So the first phase, which you saw, was the launch, and that was making sure that everyone understood the intentions, the alignment, and during the launch, as you can see, the accountable. I also started a book club with staff, and the book accountable is the story of a racist school media account. It's based on a true story that happened in California. And so for the teachers, it was also them understanding the power that they have and making sure that students understand that, you know, it's easy to say encouraging words, but what do we mean by that? So we have protocols for charged language and for hate speech and being very proactive. I was also intentional about the timing. If you look at my phases, so I wanted to make sure that we started this work at the beginning of the school year, while everyone was happy and inviting. So we started with welcoming signs, welcoming people into our buildings, and I had the community make signs and welcome our students back at the beginning. I was also intentional about different groups of students who did not feel that they had a sense of belonging from our student climate survey. So some students who are LGBTQ plus, there were different pockets of students who felt less connected to the school. So I wanted to make sure that we had people in the community who made signs that really spoke to them. Um, we're in the second phase when we're working on our pledge. Right after the day of the election, we had our professional development. And so I set up stage in the auditorium for everyone to be able to take their picture and give me an example of their leave their mark. And so that's a bulletin board in every single building. As you can probably see, I have my leave your mark created by our students. So the students, the Equity Council students in high school came up with a model. You'll see the Trojan horse, and it's actually a thumbprint because it's leaving your mark. And that's making it sustainable after this campaign, that we're going to continue to leave our mark. So we have our superintendent with his leave your mark. In every school, you see different iterations of activities. One activity was in our new building. Latimer Lane was just renovated, and so the walls are empty. So we have words matter all over the walls and until they're painted, and then something else will go up. That's where you'll also see our second video. Once the pledge is done, the high school students wrote the first iteration. Now I'm doing focus groups with the middle school students so that they can put their spin on it. And then I'm going to be meeting with our 6th grade um, equity leaders. And then we're going to have the pledge, and we're going to have community members say the pledge. Our students say the pledge. It will be posted. And you can see on the right, the last picture is the Simsbury Public Library, where I've asked them to pull books that for each grade level that would accompany the campaign. So throughout Simsbury, you'll see that there's a presence.
Sorry. So just in thinking about Farmington, I put it into the buckets of engagement, first being our student engagement piece. Our district really focuses on student voice and student agency. So we wanted to engage our students in thinking about what would be some of the lessons that are tied to our SEL work. We partner with EL and CREW, so all of our schools have SEL lessons where we talk about culture and climate topics. So especially at the middle school and the high school, we have our student equity leaders that support our lessons around topics of Actions Matters, and then words, charged language, and its impact. So you'll see a picture of our Social Justice Council, and those are all students at our high school that come together and organize our Social Justice Week. And so we're tying their work to Actions Matters. We also have our Community Council for Equity and Inclusion, which is taking the charge of supporting Actions Matters, and that's comprised of our district leaders, teachers, all staff and faculty, as well as student participants and community partners. And so we treat that as a focus group and idea sharing, where we look at the need for Actions Matters and then think about different ideas and activities that we can bring back to each school to really center the work. And then the other piece is really preparing teachers. Even before this contentious political climate, we recognized that teachers needed support in terms of navigating our growing diversity within our district and some of the contentious mindsets that might come with growing diversity in a growing district. So we've spent time at every school doing scenario training and thinking about some of the topics that impact belonging, and then helping teachers know what to say and what to do when those happen so that they can model what an upstander looks like. And I think the other piece is one of our core books that we've been utilizing for the past 2 years is The 4 Pivots, which focuses on creating a culture of belonging that also centers justice and reimagines ourselves for the work. So just really shifting the pivots of lens and mirror work, looking at ourselves, thinking about our own biases and what might impact our actions. As well as moving to a culture and climate that really centers everyone's voice and builds that wealth capital. And so I think just really students focusing on the adult pieces, providing everyone with support, and then coming together as a community has been what has helped move this work forward.
All right. So as you'll see, Avon, we're essentially going to mirror a lot of the work from Farmington and Simsbury because of our collaborative spirit, and because both of the other two districts will be in year 2 when Avon's rolling out year 1. So we will be looking at the student ambassadors that I already spoke about, but also SEL is important because right now in Avon, we currently use Second Step. To the chagrin of some parents, some teachers, they like it in varying degrees. However, now we can utilize and, look at some of those SEL lessons in Second Step, K through 8, and align it with the campaign. And then we're also looking to implement a new SEL program for our high school as well. So these things are sort of happening at the prime moment, because we can start to align and really make sure that everybody has a clear idea of where we want to move with this campaign. But that being said, the book Accountable is going to be a book that we will definitely be using. It's a phenomenal text. And I think it really speaks to the heart of what these campaigns really speak to. SEL training, I want to get the community involved in that. So not only the adults, but to make this more of a community conversation. Because again, we know, and Natalie has expressed about this political climate, and it's a reality, right? And it's something that we cannot avoid. So we just can't put our heads in the sand and say, like, it's not happening. So we just have to be steadfast in the work and saying that we know what's important, contrary to the political views or machinations of other people. So the engagement piece is going to be huge. And again, we're just going to mirror a lot of what's done in Farmington and Simsbury.
Thank you so much, Tassan. I was just moving in the essence of time. This hour flies by. And I just want to make sure that I give space for Christine to quickly wrap up, but also just demonstrate. And I think you all did a great job. And as you talked about your work, demonstrating that there's always opportunity for context and how do you adapt it for the district that you're working in, with the initiatives that you're rolling out, with the perspective and experiences of your students, staff, and families, but also opportunities for growth and adjustments. I just want to make sure if there's any kind of last comments here to be made. And then Christine, I am going to be done speaking. We're over time. I apologize. But this is amazing. So I don't want to shortchange this piece. Anything you all wanted to add?
I'll just say this one last thing. I know the three of us, we gave a very, very quick overview of what we're doing. We're more than open if anyone wanted to reach out to any one of us, if you wanted to learn more information about what we're doing specifically. But between the three of us, we got as far as we got because we truly, truly, truly collaborate with one another. We share everything, we talk, we email, we talk on the phone. So it's not something that we're doing in isolation. So keep that in mind.
Thank you. And without further ado, I will close it over to Christine. Thank you so much to Farmington, Avon, and Simsbury and your hard work, and to my colleagues for this partnership.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you, Maribel. Thank you, Tyresha, Tassan, and Natalie. This was fantastic. We will be sending out the PowerPoint through an email, and also eventually the recording will be posted on the Talk Tuesday website. So anybody that has missed can certainly, or you want to rewatch, or for whatever purposes, it will be there. I'm just going to share just a super quick reminder that in the new year, our next Talk Tuesday is going to be January 7th. So we are going to wish you a happy holidays, happy new year, and all of that. And we'll see you then. Just a very big reminder. If anyone is looking to register for Talk Tuesday, Holly will put the link in the chat. We're going to ask you not to share the Zoom meeting link that you get into. We need them to register. It's how they get their reminders. It's how we can keep track of attendance. So please share away, but please share the registration link with your colleagues. We're always welcoming more, so whoever is interested. So please do that. And let us know if you have any questions or need assistance with that. I'm very happy to help. And here's our contact information, just in case you need to get in touch with us. But again, we wish you a happy holiday, happy new year, and just success in 2025. So we will see you on January 7th. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for joining us.